Okay, so I think in the previous video part of the map that I'd made had gotten cut off. So here hopefully you can see it better. And it basically shows a map of the Sydney Trains network with many of the important bus routes superimposed. And the services along each route are marked here and linked to the route. So this is the route between Parramatta and Epping. This is the route between Blacktown and Macquarie Park. This is the route between Parramatta and Pennant Hills. This is the route between Parramatta and Bankstown. This is the route between Strathfield and Bankstown. This is the route between Bankstown and Hurstville. This is the route between Burwood and Campsie. And this is the route between Campsie and Rockdale. So I zoomed in a bit more so you could get a better look at each of the routes and all of the services along them. Now, because there are several services serving each pair of origin and destination stations, the trips are going to take variable amounts of time depending on which service you take, because each service is going to be following a slightly different path. For example, on the route between Parramatta and Pennant Hill stations, the 6:25 bus takes quite a bit less time than does the M60 bus. And between Campsie and Rockdale, the 400 bus is quite a bit faster than the 492 bus. But in this video, what I'm going to do is show you the amount of time that can be saved by taking the bus between any of the stations along each of these routes versus the train. Now, some of these routes actually are faster by train, but the train trip involves one or more transfers, so it may be more cumbersome, whereas when you take the bus you get a one-seat ride between the stations. You don't have to change trains, switch platforms, or any of that. And I'm also going to mention the frequency of service along each of these routes. So the first route we're going to take a look at is the route between Burwood Station here and Campsie Station here. And something to keep in mind is I only extensively researched the bus frequencies in one direction. So here I only am aware of the frequencies and the timings of buses between Burwood and Campsie, starting at Burwood and ending at Campsie. But I assume the reverse trip follows the same frequency patterns, but to be sure you'll have to wait till a later video that I'll post after I've looked into the reverse trips. Okay, so I've made a spreadsheet showing basically an origin destination matrix, and this page is for weekday bus frequencies, so from Monday to Friday. The origin stations are the various rows, the destination stations are the various columns. So you can see along the stretch, starting at Burwood and ending at Campsie, there are buses every 15 minutes or better from 5:30 a.m. to 8:46 p.m. and then every 30 minutes or better until 10:54 p.m. And we've assumed that the reverse trip follows the same frequency patterns, but again you'll have to check for a later video to be sure. And on Saturdays, buses depart Burwood for Campsie every 20 minutes or better from 6:12 a.m. to 8:57 p.m. and mostly every 10 minutes or better during this period. And then on Sunday, buses depart Burwood for Campsie every 20 minutes or better from 6:44 a.m. to 7:56 p.m. So you can see that's pretty comprehensive service. And again, the return trips are assumed to be departing with roughly the same frequencies over that time period, and that's from Campsie to Burwood. Now let's look at the trip starting at Strathfield and ending at Bankstown. So Strathfield is in row 14. Bankstown is in column E. Let's go down to cell 14E. You can see on weekdays, buses depart Strathfield, and the services are shown in bold here. Buses depart Strathfield for Bankstown every 20 minutes or better from 5:47 a.m. to 8:21 p.m. and mostly every 10 minutes or better during this period. And after 8:21 p.m., every 30 minutes or better until 10:51 p.m. And again, the reverse trip is assumed to be the same from Bankstown to Strathfield. And let's see, on Saturdays, this buses run every 20 minutes or better from 8:32 a.m. to 8:11 p.m. Let's see what the story's like on Sundays. It's every 20 minutes or better from 8:31 a.m. to 7:11 p.m. and then every 30 minutes or better until 8:11 p.m. So once again, pretty good service. So one thing I'd forgotten to do for the trip between Burwood and Campsie is tell you how long the trip actually takes compared to a train trip. So a trip takes anywhere from 8 to 15 minutes depending on which of these services you take, either 400, 490, 492, or M41. And this is compared to 33 to 45 minutes by train, including a transfer at Redfern Station. So by train, you'd have to go from Burwood here, transfer at Redfern, and then take the train all the way to Campsie. Okay, and from Strathfield to Bankstown, the trip's 36 minutes by bus, but 27 to 31 minutes by train. So it's actually shorter by train, but the train necessitates a transfer at Lidcombe Station. So you can see here from Strathfield to Bankstown, if you go by train, you're going to have to transfer here at this station, which usually means having to change platforms. So you can get around that by taking this bus here. The trip's a little bit longer, but you don't have to deal with getting off the train, changing platforms, or any of that. Next, we'll take a look at the trip starting at Bankstown and ending at Hurstville. So here's the weekday spreadsheet. Start. Hurstville is column I. Bankstown is row 8. We want to go to row 8, column I. So on weekdays, we have services of every 20 minutes or better from 5:39 a.m. to 8:16 p.m. and every 10 minutes or better during most of this time period. Now let's look at the Saturday timings for Saturday frequencies. So every 20 minutes or better from 7:44 a.m. to 6:46 p.m. every 10 minutes or better during most of this period. And I've put the services serving this route in bold here. And once again, the return trips here for Hurstville to Bankstown are assumed to be occurring with the same frequencies, but I don't know yet if that's the case. On Sunday, looking from Bankstown here to Hurstville, we get frequencies every 20 minutes or better from 7:36 a.m. to 6:46 p.m. So pretty good, all things told. Now let's look at how long the trip actually takes. Okay, Bankstown to Hurstville is 33 to 40 minutes by bus, but by train can take anywhere from 43 to 53 minutes, including a transfer at Sydenham Station. See that on a map, when you want to get from Bankstown to Hurstville by bus, you can take any of these routes, and it's a direct one-seat ride. But if you want to take the train, you're going to have to take this line to Sydenham and transfer to the eastern suburbs and Illawarra line and ride that down to Hurstville. Trip's going to be longer and it requires a transfer. Now we're going to look at the trip between Campsie and Rockdale. And if I haven't reiterated this enough, I know the frequencies for the trip starting at Campsie and ending at Rockdale, and I'm assuming the ones for the reverse trip are the same. But let me go to the weekday spreadsheet here. Campsie, the origin is on row 7, and Rockdale is column J. So it's served by buses 400 and 492. And you get service frequencies of every 20 minutes or better from 6 a.m. to 11:03 p.m. So wow, it even serves the late night period. And every 10 minutes or better during most of this stretch. Again, let's look at Saturday. Row 7. Column J. So every 20 minutes or better from 6 a.m. to 6:35 p.m. and then every 30 minutes or better until 10:02 p.m. And on Sunday, have every 20 minutes or better from 7:18 a.m. to 7:04 p.m. and then every 30 minutes or better until 10:01 p.m. And now let's look at how long the trip takes. So here you can see that depending on which bus service you take, the trip time is going to vary. If you take bus 400, you can get from Campsie to Rockdale in anywhere from 13 to 21 minutes, and via bus 492 will be anywhere from 21 to 32 minutes. And this variability here occurs because just based on the time of day, bus trips during hours where the roads are crowded are going to take longer versus trips when the roads aren't as crowded. Now, train trips take anywhere from 25 to 33 minutes, including a transfer at Sydenham Station. And I put here bus 400 runs more often, so most of the buses you'll see running between Campsie and Rockdale will be 400 buses, and only a few of them will be 492. So most of the bus trips will be these shorter 13 to 21 minutes. And at the low end, that's significantly shorter than the train trip, which also includes a transfer at Sydenham Station. So on the map, if you had to go by train, you have to go here to Sydenham Station, then transfer to this line and take it to Rockdale. Now let's move on to the trip between Parramatta and Bankstown. Again, I'm aware of the bus frequencies departing Parramatta for Bankstown, and I'm assuming that the frequencies of the reverse trip are the same. Looking at the weekday service frequencies, Parramatta's in row 11, Bankstown's in column E. So every 5 to 15 minutes from 6 a.m. to 8:40 p.m. and it's served by these 4 bus services. On Saturday, again, we're going to go to column E, row 11, every 5 to 20 minutes from 7:45 a.m. to 8 p.m. Let's see what happens on Sunday. On Sunday, this is every 20 minutes from 7:40 a.m. to 8 p.m. and then every 30 minutes until 9 p.m. As far as the trip time, was column E, right? Okay. So by bus, it's anywhere from 38 to 54 minutes. By train, it's anywhere from 35 to 40 minutes, so shorter by train, but when you take the train, you do have to transfer at Lidcombe station. So when going from Parramatta to Bankstown by train, you have to transfer at Lidcombe station here and take this T3 Bankstown line to Bankstown. Now let's move on to the trip between Parramatta and Epping. I know the frequencies for the trip starting at Parramatta and ending at Epping, and I'm going to assume the reverse. The frequencies of the reverse trip are the same. So on to the spreadsheet. Weekday. Pretty sure Epping's the last column in this matrix here. Okay, Epping's column M, Parramatta's row 11. 11M, we have buses. Okay, we have buses every 5 to 15 minutes from 5:45 a.m. to 8:28 p.m. and then every 30 minutes or better until 9:28 p.m. On Saturday, buses every 30 minutes or better from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. and then every 20 minutes or better until 7:40 p.m. Sunday, every 20 minutes from 7:26 a.m. to 7:26 p.m. And let's look at the trip length, both by train and by bus. By bus, it's anywhere from 25 to 33 minutes, but by train, it's a longer 33 to 48 minutes, including a transfer at Strathfield Station. So if you wanted to take the train instead of going directly to Epping, you'd have to follow this line to Strathfield, transfer, again as I've mentioned, usually involves changing platforms, and then take a train to Epping. So it's not only longer, but also involves a transfer. Now let's look at this trip here between Blacktown and Macquarie Park stations. I'm aware of the frequencies for trips starting at Blacktown and ending at Macquarie Park, and I'm going to assume that the reverse trip runs with the same service frequencies. Okay, so we're going to look at frequencies for the trip between Blacktown and Macquarie Park. So that's starting at Blacktown, ending at Macquarie Park. Blacktown is row 10. Macquarie Park's column L. So every 7 to 30 minutes from 5:30 a.m. to 7:20 p.m. on weekdays, and that's very comparable to rail service frequencies. Let's go to 10L. For Saturday, you can see that frequent service is not available, unfortunately, and the same is the case for Sundays. But on the days that service is frequently available, let's look at the trip times. And I think for Saturdays and Sundays, buses run like every hour or so most of the day, so that's not, I usually put 30 minutes as the cutoff for which you can just show up and expect the bus within a not too unreasonable period of time. Okay, we're going to go to 10L. So by bus it's 37 to 43 minutes, but by train it's anywhere from an hour and 5 minutes to an hour and 31 minutes, including anywhere from 1 to 3 transfers at variable stations. So by taking the bus instead of the train, you can save anywhere from just under half an hour to almost an hour. Yeah, if you took the train, you could potentially transfer at Strathfield and then transfer at Epping. I think perhaps there's some routes that run through the central business district. There's some trips that run through the central business district and involve a transfer at Chatswood to this Chatswood to Epping link and finally get off at Macquarie Park. But in any case, it involves at least one transfer, if not more. And the trip is anywhere from about half an hour to about an hour longer by train than by bus. So you can see, barring a couple trips, you do usually save time by taking the bus, and you always don't have to transfer by taking the bus along one of these routes. And that's not a general statement for any of the bus networks serving the Sydney region, but it's a specific statement for buses along these particular routes that I've shown on this map here. And hopefully that gives you some insight into how you can use the bus services in the region to fill in some of the gaps in the Sydney Trains network.